Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing today? Welcome to the Countdown to Chaos. We are talking Diddy, the jury duty, his team, which is ever expanding in the Southern District of New York T. Baby, listen, the Southern District of New York, the prosecutors are bracing for Diddy's new trick. They think through jury, Diddy is going to either get this trial delayed or either moved to another venue. And all I got to say is, baby, not on our watch. The Southern District of New York is calling for all potential jurors to be 100% honest about when they're filling out these questionnaires, and we'll get to that in a second, who they are, what they know, and anything. They don't want to give Diddy an ounce to stand on. Now listen, baby, you know this is going to be the Super Bowl. We are going to be covering in this trial left, right, up, down. Make sure you join us. It's going to be live city. However, I do want to point out that a lot of people don't really understand how jury selection in Southern District of New York work, okay? Let's get into this, and I'm also going to drop tea on what prosecutors are looking for, and I'm also going to drop tea about what people say Diddy's team is actually looking to happen. Spoiler alert, it's not going to work, but let's get into this, right? Now, first, how jury selection usually goes in Southern District. Okay, you guys, listen, it starts with a random pool of people. Okay, they pull it from voter registrations or DMV or anything of that purpose. Now, this is important to know because it's not like they just take 15 or 12 people and say, okay, done. They're on high profile trials. You can expect anywhere between 300 to 500 people to have to be called in. That's right. In major cases like Diddy, and make no mistake, they're looking at this to be a major case. This is going to be, I think, on the 26th floor where the huge courtroom is. It's going to be huge. And they're even going to have a press overflow room. So the court is going to summon between 300 to 500 people to build a fair jury trial. Now, these people, they're not going to show up all at once. They come in like waves, or as the prosecutors like to call them, panels, maybe at 50 to 100 at a time. Now, you might be asking, why so many? Well, a lot of people are going to be excused immediately for scheduling conflicts, hardship, language barriers. Now, I do want to point out that is in normal trials when nobody cares if Mrs. Krabappel stole a mincemeat pie off of Miss Sally's window. However, every juror I would think that is called is going to want to be on this because, baby, here's the thing. If you are a Diddy juror, this is big money. Most of the jurors end up writing books, especially if Diddy is found not guilty. If Diddy is found not guilty, I don't think that's going to happen, but if he is, the jurors can make their fortune by writing tell-alls. At the very least, each juror can make a nice little chunk of change after the trial's over by giving interviews about what they saw, what they heard, why they decided it. This is huge, okay? So, they expect a lot of people to want to be on Diddy's jury. Now, others are going to be disqualified for bias, okay? Legal issues and bad answers on the questionnaire. Again, in the federal criminal trials, you typically get 12 jurors plus 2 to 6 alternates, okay? The alternates are basically, they're bench players in case someone gets sick, lies, or has a meltdown mid-trial. I know you think it won't happen, but it happens all the time, okay? Now keep in mind, the verdict must be unanimous, so all 12 have to agree or it's a hung jury. Now, the alternates are the bench players. They sit through the entire trial, but they don't vote unless someone drops out, okay? So the jury pool. It starts with the jury summons. Some of you guys listening to this actually might have gotten the summons. Names are pulled from DMV records, voter rolls, tax forms, everything, okay? The people show up in federal court, the jury pool. Again, this is a big case. It's going to be 300 to 500 people. Okay, what's the first step? All the potential jurors Monday are expected to enter in and they have to fill out a detailed questionnaire. Now listen, this isn't just some what's your name, what do you do? You know, it gets really, really intense. For instance, sample questions. What are your thoughts on police and the justice system? Have you ever been a victim of crime? Do you follow celebrities? Do you know who Sean Diddy Combs is? What social media accounts do you use? Why do they want this? Because bias usually hides in plain sight, okay? And get this, the lawyers can and will Google you if they think that you are lying or being dishonest, or if they just want to get you out of there because they don't like your looks. You see what I'm saying? Now, the voir dire, this is what everybody's been talking about. And this is basically like legal Super Bowl. It basically is a jury tender, okay? Voir dire literally means to speak the truth. This is when the lawyers and the judge interview jurors to see who's biased, enough to serve, and too biased to serve. Now, why is it that you can be biased? Because voir dire doesn't guarantee that every biased person gets off the jury. It means that you can strike, if you're strategic, the most biased people. However, there's another problem with Diddy. And remember when I told you guys a long time ago, Diddy should have never played in that judge's face and misled the judge about that whole thing with like, they took my jury, they took my, attorney-client privilege notes, and it came out that that was all a lie. Mark Agnifilo didn't care because in Southern District of New York, the judge runs the voir dire, meaning the judge asks most of the questions. Now get this, the lawyers can suggest questions, but they don't get free reign. Now this does speed up the process, but it also limits how much Diddy's team can grill people directly, so they have to be strategic and surgical. Let's also not forget that it looks like they lost the judge's trust early on. I'm just saying, okay? So, how these strikes work. The voir dire, each side gets a certain numbers of strikes, okay? The strikes are basically saying, yeah, you're out, right? One, there are two ways lawyers can kick someone off the jury. Challenge for cause. This is when someone says something crazy, like, yo, Diddy was always innocent, I hate Cassie, right? If the judge says, and you could be like, Your Honor, bias. We move to strike voir dire. If the judge agrees they're biased, they're out. But the judge doesn't have to agree. There's also preemptory challenges, okay? Each side is going to get a limited number of these, usually 6 to 10 in federal court, depending on the case. No explanation is needed. They just don't like your vibe. Baby, you're out of there. And get this, they do say technically you can't use that to discriminate, okay? But lawyers still play chess games. For instance, in a grape case, they don't want a woman the same age on the jury that is the woman that's accusing someone of rape. They typically want men. If it's a young woman, they want older women. If it's an older woman, they want, you see what I'm saying? But they usually want men. So that's where it's like, okay, you're not supposed to discriminate for gender or race, but they do it, okay? Allegedly. Anyway, now here's the way Diddy's team is thinking about using this to their advantage. Diddy's lawyers are watching everything. Body language, eye rolls, who's gonna side-eye them, who is like literally clapping and looking starstruck when they hear his name. They're looking for people who say guilty and proven innocent in their tone, even if they try to cover it up with words, right? They also want to know people who follow blogs or gossip pages and might have made up their minds. Jurors with strong views about celebrity privilege, Me Too movement, and also they are looking for people that are huge super fans of Diddy, okay? Now, why is this important? Because of the expanded questionnaire. This is where the real screening begins. Before anyone goes into the courtroom, every potential juror is handed a jury's questionnaire. Again, this is like a legal version of like Match.com, but you gotta be honest, okay? So, who creates the questionnaire? The judge has final authority over the questionnaire. Both sides, the prosecution and the defense, have submitted proposed questions, but they are proposed. The judge decides which questions can make it in and can reward or reject any question. This means Diddy team, again, can request questions that might help spot bias, but they don't get to call the shots. Again, Diddy should have never played in that judge's face. So what type of questions are on there? Background, identity, marital status, number of children, occupation, educational level, but they also ask your legal system experience. Have you ever been arrested, charged, victim of crime, ever served on a jury before, any family and friends and law, blah, 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 all right? The media consumption and social media. What news sources do you read or watch? Do you follow any true crime, celebrity gossip, or political content? So if you're tattletale, be honest. Right? What social media accounts do you use? Do you post about current events, celebrity awareness, opinion-based questions? How do you feel about wealthy or high-profile people in court? Do you believe people in power are treated fairly by the justice system? All right? However, Diddy's team is said to also want to include, and I think they got approved, questions that weed out jurors who already see him as guilty because of media coverage, identify people who hold strong opinions about hip-hop culture, nightlife, or gender-based violence, and detect bias around his wealth, his race, masculinity, or celebrity entitlement. Okay? Now, why this matters? Well, because, and this is the most important thing, obviously, if the questionnaire gives the defense team a first impression, they're going to flag certain answers to dig through their voir dire. However, if someone says, I don't use social media, but later the defense finds their Reddit account trashing Diddy, that person could be dismissed or become a reason for a mistrial later. You guys. And more important, the more revealing the questionnaire, the better the chances of identifying hidden bias before it poisons the verdict. Now, important, can Diddy argue for a delay or change in venue? Absolutely, and he can use that if people lie about the jury. Now, again, to let the media frenzy cool off, if something major just dropped, like leaked footage, an expose, or viral threads, it can poison the whole jury pool. Diddy's team might argue that holding the trial now would be like trying to pour clean water into a dirty glass. They can argue that there's been extensive prejudicial pre-trial publicity. Potential jurors are walking in with baked-in opinions, and we need more time to ensure a fair trial. They can also do a motion to change venue. Okay, they can argue that the community is so saturated with bias that an impartial jury is impossible, and the pretrial publicity has been unusually hostile. They'll bring evidence, news clippings, viral social media posts, polls showing public opinion, and examples of potential jurors making biased statements and questionnaires. Now listen, could this work? Well, listen, it's rare, but it's not unheard of. Courts usually try to find a jury through voir dire before approving a venue change. However, in extreme cases, like, the Boston Marathon bombing, the Rodney King trials, venue changes have been granted when the local bias was too deep to ignore. So Diddy's team right now is monitoring the media closely, archiving headlines, pretending to argue he's already being tried in the court of public opinion, and all this other mess. Again, it's important that the jury be very, 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 very fair. Because also, if they can find out that somebody lied about how much they knew about anything or lied about their position, this can actually result in a mistrial and be the reason that Diddy goes free. Anyway, you guys, listen. Join me tomorrow. We're going to be there for the first day of jury selection. I have people on the ground. Baby, bigger than the what? Bigger than the Super Bowl. Anyway, y'all, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.